Justin, how are you feeling today?
Very good, very good. Very curious about this podcast, so I'm looking forward to it, and I'm very much looking forward to my home-cooked meal when I get home.
Okay, that sounds appetizing. What did you cook today?
I'm not cooking anything. My partner is.
Okay.
We've got a nice rabbit bolognese, so I'm looking forward to that. And also, I love rabbit, done the traditional Maltese way. So yes, I'm looking forward to that.
So we'll have to wrap it up very
bang on time. Yes.
bang on. Justin, when I was doing a bit of research about you, from where you came from, your profile, what do you do, you wear a lot of hats. So if you were to remove all of your hats and you were going to present yourself today, who would Justin be?
Well, I do love my hats, so I think who I would be today would very much still be who I am with all those hats on. I don't like to pretend to be anyone other than who I am, and those hats tend to fit me because they apply to my natural personality, my natural state. I feel I function best when I am true to my own thought process, my own opinions, without them being filtered. So I would say I'd still be exactly who I am with those hats on.
And that requires courage. How do you make sure that, or how did you harness courage? I think that would be a better question. How did you harness courage in order to be courageous, to be who you are with...
A good question. I think I wouldn't say I harnessed courage more than I had no other choice, I think. Going from... I left Australia when I was a young kid, around about 2. Came to Malta, did my kindergarten, went back to Australia, did my primary school, then came back here after primary school to do my secondary school. And the cultural differences were very, very big. So, of course, in Malta, it was an all-boys secondary school. I would say very much more rough as a school. But I just had it in me to not really want to... fit in. I didn't really see much point. Everyone else is already doing that, so it kind of felt like, why should I be one of the same? So I always felt like I wanted to just stick to who I was. So if they were speaking Maltese or whatever, I would continue to speak English. That was my go-to, my safe space. I was very comfortable with reading, spending time with people, getting to know people, and all this stuff. So I kind of just always felt to my natural rhythm. So courage then going into an all-boys school kind of had to be your default setting because, again, it was very rough as a public school. It was good. I had a lot of very interesting experiences, but I learned very quickly that you had to have a thick skin to survive. Yeah. And with that, obviously, comes the courage to be yourself. I never for some reason, it never appealed to me to blend in and just be like everyone else. There was just no fun in that. Very boring. Yeah.
And how do you see yourself as being different? What is your quirk?
I think I have a few, maybe one too many, probably. I think my maybe biggest one, or the one that comes to my mind as we're talking, is probably that I do feel that if you have a voice, you should use it, but not use it for the sake of it. So I think it's important to voice your opinions and to be the change, as cheesy as it sounds, that you want to see around you want to see in others. I think that's very important. So I think that kind of really is more of my quirk. I'm very authentic to myself, and that has come with positive outcomes, but also negative ones. But the negative ones are negative at the time, and they become positive later, I always find. So
okay, something that struck me, Justin, and it ties in very, very much with my current journey of personal growth. As I was reading through your profile, you said something that you did so many things, but you didn't want to spread yourself too thin. So you focused on one thing, but you do it really, really well. And that has been a narrative for me in the past couple of weeks, I would say, because in parallel to yourself, I work full time. I have my own business. I do podcasting as well. So I wear many hats, but sometimes I also feel that where is me in all of that process? So, and who I want to be. So at the moment, I'm currently going through a period of, okay, what do I want to keep? What can I discard? because I don't want to spread myself too thin and represent myself in a way for myself and for my clients and for the people that I work with and for the people that I love as well, as not being there, not being present. Not sure if you resonate with that when you were thinking about that statement or when you verbalize that.
Yes, I mean, I definitely do resonate with this. I think we all have to make our own choices. And I think what I'm trying to get to with this is, if you want to be successful, if you want to have money, if you want to have businesses, if you want to go beyond where you started, that involves certain sacrifices. And I think it's good to have an awareness of what those sacrifices are. In some cases, it's the social sacrifices. So not being able to maybe go out with your friends, not being able to spend all your money on drinks and clubbing, not being able to spend time with your family, your partner, your kids. I think all these things are ultimately become sacrifices that, as you get older and wiser, I think you tend to appreciate the value of those sacrifices more as time goes on. In the beginning, I think when you're young, you maybe don't appreciate them so much because obviously you feel like time is infinite.
Yeah.
As you get older, you realize that time is limited.
Very
and
finite.
Yes. And for me, in fact, I see it as a currency. You know, you're not going to get it back. So I'm choosing to spend it today here with you, having this discussion, obviously sharing my experiences and thoughts with your viewers. So that's how I'm investing this time today. But I think having the awareness of what it's going to take, but I wouldn't say I would choose anything different, because for me, I know where I want to go, and I want to go to a place where my kids in the future don't have to go through the same hardships, but have all the opportunity that they would like to pursue. I think that's where I want to get to. I'm not there yet, so it's still a work in progress. But obviously, in that journey, I know there are sacrifices that need to be made. It's horrible. I wish I didn't have to make them, but of course, I need to if I want to progress. And I think from what you were saying about your own situation, I think it's something similar. Mm-hmm. At some point, something has to give, but then I believe you can choose to still do that even if you're not doing it yourself directly. And that's where obviously you put together a structure, you find the right people, and you start to grow, mm-hmm. And you start to work through others. And I think that's really maybe the time mm-hmm. that you're at. And I think that's a great place to be. But mm-hmm. realizing that, I think, is important, and capitalizing on the opportunity. I don't really like to give opportunities away. Mm-hmm. So if things are going very well with you and you have a number of different opportunities, I think if you can find a way to make that work, as opposed to saying, you know what, actually, I'm not going to do that now. I mean, I'll do this instead. Yeah. For me, it just feels like a missed opportunity. If someone says to you, I'm willing to give you €100, would you do this? As long as obviously it's a reasonable request, of course.
Yes.
And you say, well, no, then you've just lost €100. So if you can find a way within what you're doing to actually do that, then you've just made €100. So I think that's really what you want to try and do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's quite interesting as well, because the way at least you verbalize it also signals that you will not just do it for the sake of doing it, but you'll find a way. You would be resourceful enough, let's say, mm-hmm. to do it, but also by delivering value and obtaining value. Yep. Not just for the sake of doing it, yes. just because I want to get the €100, yes. but I want to give value and provide and receive value as well by doing it, in the sense that, will this increase my reach? Will this increase my relationship with my contact, for example?
Yes.
Or building trust. So I think there is the transaction there might go beyond financial means.
100%. I think the idea really is to maximize the value of your time. Mm-hmm. I have a few different companies and interests, and the main logic behind that is that if I'm having a meeting with someone, if they need recruitment services, I have a company for that. If they need to be introduced to someone for investment, or they're looking for someone to work with, I have a company for that. If they're looking for corporate services or advice or advisory services, I have a company for that. So the idea is that from that one conversation, it's almost like a net. I have a big net that I can capture as much as I possibly can. But of course, each of these are interlinked to each other. So if someone comes and says to me, listen, hey, I would like to open up a donut shop, I don't know where to start. I can probably think about it.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, and I wouldn't have the resource to do that right now. But any of those interlinked services, yes, of course I can. So for me, again, it's trying to capture as much of the opportunity that's being presented to me.
Where did it start? Where did Justin start having all of this network, all of this net of services?
Oh, God. I would say it started probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
It started when I took my first step into recruitment, and that was at a company called Pentasia. Okay. And there I met a lot of different people. It forced me to really network, which I think was great. And it also tied in nicely to one of my natural skill sets, which is talking to people, getting to know people, understanding people, and trying to make that successful match. So I think there is kind of where it started. And I got exposed to the gaming industry, and of course all the innovation, everything that was buzzing around the gaming industry back then, and slowly made that move into gaming. So I think probably 10 years ago. I would say before then it was a completely different story, though, of course, because I've mentioned this in some other discussions where I said, one of my first jobs was at Popeye Village, so that was a completely different situation. But you learn what it means to do work. So today, okay, it might be less laborious, but I'm still using my mind as much as I possibly can. But it's not that labor intensive, right? So going back then, I know, listen, for that €5, that €6, I know how much blood, sweat and tears it can take to make a living. So today I always still appreciate that. I even remember working in a small gabbana, it was called, a little shop. I think it was in Bujiba, actually. Okay. I only did a day there because I just couldn't handle it.
Okay, all right.
And I did a day there not because the work was strenuous, but I used to panic around money. So giving people the right change, I used to completely panic.
You have to calculate it in your head.
Not the calculation. That's God forbid I get it wrong. And then what are they going to say? I gave them the wrong change. So it didn't really work. So I went from that to now, handling millions. I would say is a very different story. But it goes to show you can progress.
I think it's progressive overload. It's the effect that what you did 10 years ago now. You find it easier because you learned and put yourself in that situation to learn through exposure, basically. So in your businesses, you first consulted C-level, now you are a C-level. Yeah. So on that note, how is that seat different from the consulting to actually being in that position?
Yeah, I think it depends which happens first. I think if you've gone in as a C-level and then you become a consultant, that's one thing. If you're a consultant and then you become C-level, I think they're two very, very different things.
Very interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Because when you are C-level, you already know what the expectations are because you have somehow gotten to that solution yourself. Yeah. You've experienced it yourself. Yeah. As a consultant, it's a bit like being a teacher but not having ever done the job yourself. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And of course, we all know the quotes around that, right? Those that don't know teach or can't do teach, which is not, I don't think it's really true, but it does play a little bit to this point that I'm making here in terms of the differences between one and the other. So I think really the main difference today is that if you are in a C-level position, your job, of course, is, if you're doing your job correctly, is to absorb as much information you can, both from your internal but also your external sources, so that you can improve how you're handling a particular situation or how you're handling a particular item throughout your day. You can also choose not to do that, you can choose to just go with the flow and see how it goes. But of course, drawing on other people's experience means that you're causing less damage, or you're hemorrhaging less money in the choices you're making every day because you've actually learned from other people's failures. Yeah. So I think that's probably a big difference. But then the other caveat to that would be that as a consultant, you are bringing that external information into the business, and you have to adjust your approach and also how that information relates to that particular business in various different ways. Because obviously if you're working for or consulting a gaming company, it's going to be very different to you consulting, say, a fintech or another company in a different sector.
Hmm. And I see that with my clients as well, and I appreciate the word that you use, teaching, because interestingly enough, I don't see it that way. So when I'm sitting down and having a one-to-one with a C-level or director, let's say, to me it's not teaching. To me it's just I'm trying to do my best to provide an alternative solution, to provide a different perspective, to provide an outside looking in kind of perspective. So the intention wouldn't be to teach for me from a consultant point of view, but rather to provide a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a human being would be so immersed in the solution and in whatever they're trying to do that sometimes we don't have enough time in the day-to-day, in the operations, to step backwards and look on the periphery.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need someone else. And that someone else can be a friend, can be a coach, can be a mentor. So it's not necessarily someone who has experience in it. So that's the way I like to frame it, and that's how I like to present it.
I think it's. I think this is the beauty of having different consultants, right? Everyone brings something different to the table.
Definitely.
I think for me, my approach when it comes to providing those services, even though unfortunately time is a little bit more limited now, I don't really have the opportunity to do that as much as I would like to, is that there is always an element of doing as you said, but also the teaching element does come in as well, in my opinion, because to teach is to give the tools, or to refine the tools. Sometimes you might have, let's say, a knife, but that knife is blunt and it needs to be sharpened. Or sometimes you don't even know how to make the knife in the first place. So I think it's teaching someone the skills to be able to go out there and hunt, to go out there and do it for themselves. I think is one key aspect of consulting. But then consulting takes a different perspective too. It can also be giving that different point of view as well. And sometimes that can come from experience, or it can come from more of a theoretical point of view. Yeah. But theoretical doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't have its basis in practicality either, because it could be that you've spent a lot of time doing the reading, the research, and all this stuff, and people have gone through practical scenarios that have led to a paper or have led to a theoretical study, which then you're using in your advice. So either way, you're getting that experience. But again, it depends on the business, it depends on the CEO, what they're lacking. Typically, the CEO, C-level, or the person who needs the consulting is looking for something that they're lacking either from their team, from their company, or themselves. Yeah. And that's obviously unique to them.
And sometimes people would be aware of what they lack, or sometimes you need to help them uncover it. And sometimes the truth is a little bit difficult and challenging to swallow as well.
Yes.
So that's the work in itself to get from point A to B. And it's very rational, I would say. It's something very normal. I think it's a defense mechanism of sorts that we do when someone tells us something that we deep down really know, but have struggled with come to terms with it, because it might be something that it's not easy as well.
Yeah, I think it can be difficult. I mean, my tell is actually if someone, I don't know why this is the case, by the way, but if someone tells me something that deep down that I didn't even realize was something I thought was the truth or whatever, I tend to laugh. So it's someone, I just comes out laughing. I don't ask me why. But everyone has the little tell when there's something maybe they didn't want to hear. But I think it can happen. I think the awareness is the most important thing. Just because you don't want to hear it doesn't mean necessarily that it's wrong or that you shouldn't be working on it. Actually, if you're going through that feeling, probably means you really kind of do need to work on it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Justin, earlier you mentioned about how glamorous the entrepreneurial journey is, and you mentioned the grind, actually, not the glamorous part, but you did mention the glamorous part in your articles and interviews. And I agree. I would agree with that. I think that's the idea of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, is very romanticized, and I think it has own thrills. It's nice as well. So it's a different lifestyle. I think the market is oversaturated with content that tells you that this is the only way for you to lead a successful life, to be successful, to lead the life, to be rich, and so on and so forth. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the glamour side, I think, is how people perceive it, or how they perceive you. sometimes even indirectly how you help others to perceive you in reality. And I think there is always an element of that when you are successful.
Yeah.
But ultimately what people don't see is everything that happens leading up until that point.
Definitely.
And I think, as you and I both know, the realities are very different. You know, you're working long hours, you're getting stressed, you're possibly, you know, causing yourself to lose your hair, you're getting white hair. I'm getting all of these things, by the way.
I'm losing it, at least you're getting
it's happening. But I think all this makes not having that access can almost cut a key part of the learning process. So people think, oh, okay, it's very easy to become an entrepreneur. I'll listen to one of Andrew Tate's courses and I'll figure it out. This is not the situation. Also, one thing I have to say is that there's no real one-fits-all solution. And I think this is the biggest mistake people make, is that they go and read a book, or they go and listen to a podcast, or they go and sit for a course, and they think that magically this is going to apply to them. I don't think it really does. I think really what someone has to do is find what works for them. That's the most important thing. And the thing is, this is where you mentioned consulting for a little bit earlier on, is where I think an advisor or consultant can be more help in finding what's going to work for you, as opposed to you sitting and listening to a one-fits-all podcast or talk. I mean, you don't walk into a shop and get one size all jumper, top, t-shirt, or whatever, right? I mean, everyone has their own sizes.
Yes.
Everyone has their own colors. Some people like certain materials. Some people are allergic to certain material. Even some colors, perhaps. So you know, so everyone has their own taste, and also their own requirements. And I think that is obviously the most important thing here. So finding the tools that you need, or getting the tools that you need to be the most successful you, is the most important thing. Because success is not, there is no formula for success.
And you need to figure it out. At least this has been my journey, is that there's a lot of inner work that you need to do. And entrepreneurial or having your own business will set you off on a journey of self-exploration, where you will face off your fears, doubts, insecurities, and areas of improvement. And if you're not ready to tackle that, you will become your own bottleneck. So if you're not able to outgrow yourself and not only delegate by building systems that the team can use and take the business further, you will run the risk of becoming your own bottleneck. So I think entrepreneurial is a very tough yet very rewarding self-explorative journey. I think it's one of the best things that you can do in order for you to learn more about yourself, where you tick, where you fall, what pisses you off, what you stand for, your values. So I think it's a hodgepodge of these experiences.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's all the above. It's also, you have to be prepared to be lonely. I've said this before. Yes. You have to be okay with running on your own steam. And sometimes that means that you're going to have absolutely everyone telling you, no, it's not a good idea, you know, why are you going to do this? And funnily enough, these are always people that have never done what you're saying before. So ultimately, you're getting opinions from people who, you know, don't know what they're talking about. They're giving you an opinion.
But they're influential, nonetheless.
Yes, you have to brush it off, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the mistake I made very early on.
Okay.
Because I've always had a lot of ideas, but I used to bounce those ideas and try and get validation from other people. Yeah. But that validation would never come. And of course it's never going to come, because ultimately these people didn't have the idea. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the same experience, the same mentality that I do. So of course they're not going to see what I'm seeing. And I think there I killed a lot of good ideas very early on. So I would say I agree with you. The only other bit I would add to that is that you have to just believe in yourself. You have to be okay to fail, and you have to be stubborn enough to keep banging your head against the same brick wall until one day, in the hopes that one day it will crack.
Yeah.
And you'll break through.
And that's very hard.
Very hard.
That's I think one of the hardest thing, actually, because I think there's a saying that goes along with this. You have to believe in yourself before everyone else believes in you.
Yeah.
And to use a phrase that you've used, Justin, is that you have to be able to run on your own steam. When it gets lonely, what helps you out, Justin, when you're lonely at the top?
That's a very good question. I think what helps me is focusing on what I'm trying to achieve.
Okay.
And also looking at people who have been around me in the past. Not to do a comparative exercise, but what I tend to find is the reason why people are in your past and not in your present is because either they weren't able to keep up, or they didn't see your vision, they didn't see where it was that you wanted to go. You had different points of view, you grew apart, they had different priorities, all these things. Looking back on that, and you obviously having not made some of those choices, can look back on that and say that you made the right choice in pursuing this path because you're remaining focused and true to what it is that you want to achieve. So for me, I think the goal is the most important thing when I do get lonely. What am I trying to achieve? And I also see what I have achieved in getting there thus far. So if I am looking to become a billionaire, for example, I would appreciate the fact that I made $1 million. And I would appreciate looking back and seeing other people who were around me maybe at the time who didn't make those choices and maybe haven't been as successful, have taken a completely different path. And that's not because I get satisfaction of any failure or anything like that, but more because I made a choice to move beyond that situation. And I can see that. I can see the results of that. And I think that for me is very, very important.
I'm pretty sure you were, but were you ever in a situation where you had to cut people loose, where you had to say, listen, this is your path, this is mine, shake hands, and we still have to part ways because we share different views, philosophies, ambitions, or drive? Because you mentioned a very good keyword that some people can't keep up. And at least that's how I say. I don't think it's coming from an arrogant point of view or some that you, hey, I'm very fast, I'm very clever, but there is an element of stamina and endurance, and how for how long you would like to be stubborn into that cracking that brick wall. And some people say, I've done it for a year, it's enough, I didn't manage, but you might continue going. So where would be the tipping point of where we are not on the same wavelength, we have to part ways?
I think the tipping point would be where I feel like I'm being slowed down, or I feel like I'm being held back. I think that's the most that is the point.
Okay.
I think when you see that, and it's not the first instance, because sometimes it can happen without there really being any intention behind it, but when it becomes consistent, where you're made to feel bad for the choices that you need to make to move forward, when that's you being held back, but you're also being made to feel guilt. And I think that's something that over time I've realized I can't tolerate. So it's something where, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen once and I'm going to cut someone out. Absolutely not. If it becomes a consistent pattern though, then yes. Today, I have a very low tolerance for that. In fact, if I hear something that I get one indication that that's going to happen, I'll just move on. And I think that's part of what makes being an entrepreneur and being so determined sometimes, like I said, lonely, but also difficult. You do have to make those difficult choices. And it's not a reflection of anyone in particular, but it is just you showing that you're determined. There are also other people, and I've had one particular person comes to mind, where I was in this place where I was getting validation for all my ideas from different people, and I was getting very lost in that, and these ideas were not coming to fruition. And my partner at the time had said something along the lines of, you're not the man I thought you were. You just can't seem to get these ideas. And this became a sticking point.
Okay.
And I realized to myself that this person was really with me for the potential of these particular ideas, and not necessarily for me. So they weren't really prepared to be part of the journey. The journey is the difficult bit. When you get there, it's obviously a lot easier. Today, it's a very different story. I'm able to do things, provide things, buy things, go places. Any idea I have, I can open up a company and create, start building on it. It's a lot easier to do. But back then, it wasn't. So even that support was very different. So that person was cut loose. The person that's in my life today is very different, has supported me for years as we have continued to build this journey together. So I think you have to find the right people as well, even though it can be lonely. But if you do find the right people, it can serve as a big key for your success and actually keep adding to your momentum.
I think the way I see it is that everyone is part of a puzzle. We are the builders of our own puzzle. Everyone has their own puzzle to build. And even when we seek for advice, or if I seek for advice from friends, family, partners, colleagues, mentors, everyone gives you a piece of a puzzle. Then when you receive that piece of the puzzle, you need to see how and if you can make it fit with your overall trajectory and vision. Because sometimes when we receive feedback, we take it alla lettera. We take it as at face value. But sometimes we have to sift. So I have to see, does this fit with my goal? Does it fit with where I'm heading? Because as you said, Justin, is that we know the journey, we know the vision, we have the vision. No one can be behind our eyes and see where we're heading. We are the ones that we are directing sometimes. And in most cases, especially if we are the business owners. So I think, at least the way I see it, is that everyone that we interact with within our support system gives us a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think the question is if you want to use that puzzle piece or not, because it could be coming from the wrong person. They might be playing a completely different game.
Yeah.
You know, so you might be playing Legos, they're playing dominoes.
Yes.
So the thing is, I think if it's your job to get mature enough and wise enough to understand, is the puzzle piece coming from the right person? If not, you can bin it. If it is coming from the right person, is it the right puzzle piece? Because in some cases, it might not be the right puzzle piece and it might not fit. But then I'm of the mind that sometimes if the puzzle piece doesn't fit, you can make it fit. And then that's your job to do as well.
What helps you connect all of these dots, Justin? Because you have multiple businesses, you've been involved in different companies. What helps you connect all of these dots and delivering?
I think the main thing for me is that I always believe that no matter what is asked, it can be delivered. Okay.
Come again? So
no matter what is asked, whatever is needed, no matter how improbable, unlikely, irrational, somehow it can be delivered. Okay. Now, one might say that's complete fantasy land. Of course, you know, if someone tells you, hey, can you get me a flying pink unicorn that cries Skittles, obviously that's not going to happen, right? But you know, and the funny thing is that's the first thing that came to mind. So I think for me, it starts with the belief that anything can be done. A lot of people that I've encountered don't have that ability. They focus too much on why it can't be done. And these are two very different angles. I know it can be done. Even if it doesn't sound like it, I know it can be done. How am I going to get it done? Now, the question is then how much do you really want to get it done? Yeah. Because it could be that what needs to be, for you to get it done, you need to put 3, 4, 5, 10 times the amount of cash into it, or effort into it, or blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then the question becomes, well, how much do I really want it then? Yeah. You know? So for me, I think the way that I connect the dots is by removing the obstacles immediately. So I don't get bound by why it can't be done, all the things that people say about all the issues and the delays and all this, and focus only on how am I going to get it done. And that removes a lot of the weight and the burden, you know, from trying to solve the problem. Then I solve the problem in my ideal way, and I work through those little issues to resolve it. And most of the time, what you typically think are issues end up not being issues, or what you typically think are going to be roadblocks end up not being roadblocks. So, or you come up with a completely different idea that avoids any of these roadblocks in the first place. So I think being open to solving any issue is step number one, and then being able to remove yourself from the issue itself and look at it holistically, I think is the best way, because you have to remove yourself from that situation in order to be able to solve it. Yeah. And you also need to understand it. That's also something else. I mean, my parents had a bit of a case recently where they're connected to some drainage pipe in all these houses in this particular street in Hamrun and all this stuff, and I'm trying to make sense of this problem.
Okay.
And so the first thing I said to them was, I need to speak to whoever has done these particular pipes, so I can understand. I've got no idea how to do plumbing. I've got no idea how to solve these drainage problems. Absolutely nothing. But logic still applies, right?
Yes,
But I
yes.
can only understand it. I can only fix it once I understand it. Sorry. And so I've organised a meeting with this guy so he can explain how the pipes work and all this sort of stuff, and then we'll solve it. A previously unsolvable problem, apparently, but it can be solved.
Once you understand the logic and concept behind it.
Yes, and remove myself from all because apparently there's about 40, 50 people involved in this saga,
Okay.
and remove myself from everything that's being said in order to just solve the problem. I know I need to understand it first. Once I've understood it, I can come up with my best way to solve it, and I can see if that's realistic or not, and then focus on that.
What if the obstacles is the team or the people? Not blaming the people, just an extreme example here. How do you balance between, okay, move aside, I'll fix it because I know how to solve it, whereas on the other side, teaching, mentoring the others around you, so that from obstacles they become your allies. How do you navigate those kind of situations?
I think the most important factor there is time. So how much time do I have? So if something is going to cause an issue and it's needed now, it's needed tomorrow, then I have a time constraint. So as a result of that, I do not have the luxury of being able to show the team or the people how to do what they need to do, or guide them or teach them, none of the above. So obviously I have to do it myself. What I would do in that scenario is I would bring them with me. So if I'm going to solve something because of the time constraint, I would bring some of the team or the relevant people with me so they can see how I'm solving the problem, in the hopes that in the future they will have learned from that practical experience. In a scenario where you have got the time, then that's a completely different scenario. So there, what I would do is I'd do a bit of a map. So what is the issue? What have we done? Okay, what could we do that we haven't done? And is it worth it? I think this is how I would do it. In fact, recently I was doing this with one of my companies that was having a bit of a problem in terms of finding the right person for this particular role. As I'm sure we've all had at some point, and we mapped it out. What have we done? What do we need to do? Or what could we do? And ultimately, is what we could do worth it? So is it worth it financially? Because if I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z, it might cost this, but I'm only earning this. Is that even worth it in the first place? So that's kind of how I handle those situations.
Okay, very interesting, because I think most people would see time as another constant problem. But when you see time, as you explained it, from this is from a finite resource, this is how much I have of this resource and what we can do with this resource, I think it makes time feel tangible.
Yeah, and for me, time is very tangible, but it's a bit like a surgeon, I suppose. Like if you're going to do open heart surgery, right? I mean, you know what the ultimate outcome is. So the doctor doesn't go in and just rip the heart out, does he? Because that's what he wants to do, right? He needs to get it out there as quickly as possible. But he's not going to do that. So what he has to do is obviously, I would assume, I don't know, by the way, I am not a surgeon, so please do not trust me with...
We're a plumber now, so...
Exactly. Don't trust me with a scalpel or with a wrench. But logically, I would imagine he would have to close certain connections that are connecting blood supply to the heart, and you have to go through a certain process, right? Otherwise you just rip the damn thing out, but obviously that's not going to happen. So I think for me that's the most important thing. You have to understand those processes, and in knowing that process takes time, then you know what your priorities are. So priority number one is what is the most immediate action I need to take in order to get to my end result, and just follow step by step till you get there. So the time aspect is how long it's going to take me to do that, because I know I need to get the heart out. Okay, that's how much time I have, but I need to follow X, Y, and Z to get there.
Justin, you do produce quite a varied number of video content.
Oh,
and
really?
I watched a couple. Which is your most cherished topic or area of interest that you like to educate about? Because they are educational.
I suppose they are. I mean, for me, it's more about giving my opinion on the local dynamics. I think this is very, very important.
Okay.
When it comes to business, I think it's also good. That's probably secondary, but I would say more often than not, I find myself talking about what could be done better, what could be improved, what are the issues, what are the things that people are not talking about that we should be talking about. I think those types of things are probably more of interest to me at the moment. And that's purely because I tend to find interest, joy in solving problems. So I don't know why, but that is something I enjoy. So I find that issues in the, for example, challenges in infrastructure in Malta, what we could be doing better in business, all these sort of things are things that I like to talk about. I have gone through myself, and so I tend to share those opinions. And also to try and help spark other people to think about these things themselves as well. So it's less about me thinking it should be done the way that I think it should be done, but more to spark discussion that can lead to someone going, aha, or even to get the attention of someone who can actually fix it and then does.
Mm-hmm. And what is the response that you get in the sense that from a Maltese culture point of view about the Maltese perception of a problem and how to solve it?
I think the reception is always very good. I have to say, for the most part, probably 95, dare I say maybe 96, 97% is always very, very positive. I have got, the odd comments here and there, of course, but that's understandable.
Yeah.
And also wanted. It's completely,
Yes,
it's wanted,
definitely.
it's expected. I think for me, the biggest mistake we make is assuming or hoping that you're going to put an opinion out there and everyone should be okay with it.
Yeah.
Everyone should love it. Of course they're not.
You'd have a problem if it happens because there's no feedback and no...
100%. And you need to be critiqued. You need to be challenged. And when you don't, that's obviously when issues arise. So for me, I think it's fundamental, actually. But no, I think response has been very good, and I think it's also helped to spark certain discussion. I do see some things change as well. So for me, it's been positive.
So how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a facilitator, as a person who sparks ideas?
I mean, I don't really see myself in any other way than just myself.
Okay.
I know it sounds very odd, but I mean, I haven't gone out there with the aim of being something.
Okay.
I think for me, it's more a case of having discussions on topics, finding solutions for things that we don't typically see being discussed. I think that's the most important thing for me. I think locally we have got this, and to touch a little bit on your earlier question, is this approach of, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And you can see that in a number of different places. I mean, even going to a restaurant, people know the food is stale. They know it's not what they ordered. They know it's missing something. They will, quietly eat it or not, pay and leave. And, you'll never hear from them and never hear from them again. So I don't have that approach. For me, it's more like I will mention it and I will say, okay, this pudding is hard. That happened to me a couple of days ago, actually. I was really looking forward to it, actually. It was a bread pudding. But it was rock solid. But then I found out it had to go through a process of being heated and then whatever the cream they put on top. And then it was good. But, you have to do that.
Yeah.
But for me, I wouldn't have known and I wouldn't have gotten what I paid for unless
Yes.
I actually brought it up. And so for me, these things are all hopefully to spark some positive change.
Okay. I mean, it's I find your statement very interesting in the sense that I always try to be me and not trying to impersonate someone else. That's a very powerful stance, and very interesting because you affect the world around you and in quote unquote, by being yourself. But I also see a lot of outwork work in terms of impact. So there is a lot of impact in what you do. And what does it say about yourself?
Well, I suppose it depends what you mean by impact. I mean, I'm glad to hear it. That's great. But I mean, for me, I think impact in the sense of what I do in terms of content, my opinion pieces and things like this, can be anything for me. So for me, if it's someone just having a different thought, or if someone says, maybe I should do that, or if it's someone who gets up and then off the sofa and says, you know what, let me work on that, or let me reach out to Justin and see what he thinks. I need some help with this, whatever. I think any bit of change in the monotony of what someone is doing or the approach that someone is having, I think for me is very positive, and I'm happy to impact even just a single person's life. I know it sounds very cheesy, but that's really true.
Let's say, Justin, a client comes in, or a prospective investment opportunity comes in, and there is someone who is pitching that idea. What is the one thing that you would want to see from that person pitching the idea or presenting a situation to you?
I think the most important thing I look for is, do they have grit, and can they prove it to me that they have that grit? And grit means you've gone through hell and back, you've gone through difficult life experiences, you've got every reason to not keep doing what you're doing, but you've continued to persevere. Now, for some people, that's just, sometimes it's just stupidity, really. The idea is not there, the quality is not there, are you solving a problem? That's not there either. So for some, it's just they've put so much money into it, they've got no other choice. So that's not really grit, more than it is having to endure, and that's something very, very different. But grit is where you have a good idea, you've delivered that idea, it's clear, you're solving a problem, and you have gone through hell and back to get to this conversation that you've had, and you can prove to me all the lengths that you've gone to get to this seat, to have this discussion. That to me is very, very important, because you're backing a person, you're backing a founder, you're backing people, and then you're backing the business, the product, the infrastructure, all that sort of stuff. But if the people haven't got the grit, haven't got the stamina, haven't got that backbone, the company's done. Anyway.
And sometimes when someone have done the work, they have been through hell and back. I think you need to go through it to fully understand, just to tie it back to what we were saying earlier, to see what you're made of. And whether this is something that you would want to pursue as well. Because you might do some ventures, you might pursue some ideas, but then realize that this is not for you. You might realize that this doesn't really interest you. It might have been interesting at the beginning, but it's not something that you really want to pursue. And that's the failing cycle of entrepreneurship as well. Some ideas are very shiny at the beginning, but then fail when we start to get them, or our enthusiasm might fail. Doesn't mean that the idea is wrong. It might be bad timing as well, various reasons. But I think there's always a lesson that can be learned from that idea that you wouldn't want to pursue.
Yeah, I think there's always a lesson should you choose to receive it. That's the most important thing. In some cases you don't, and you're so upset, or you're so immature about something, you just don't receive it. The only thing I would say, or maybe add to that, is to make sure you're not getting that confused with other people's impact on that idea or that initiative, because that's what I was talking about a little bit before, is that other people's feedback, other people's input, what you're seeing out in the market can almost be sometimes disheartening. Someone might even release something that you've been working on for years, and they've already released it, it's out there marketing it, and you say, I'm gonna leave it like this. That's just not the right solution. So if you have the grit, you'll find a way of making that work. You'll still go out. And hopefully your product will be better than theirs anyway, in some way, shape or form. And even if it's not better, you can probably cost it better. The commercials can look better. So there's something that you can do there to still capitalize on the opportunity and the work that you've put in. So you can't defeat yourself. I think that's the most important thing. So if you really genuinely then believe, listen, this is what just wasn't such a great idea, then it's fine, no problem. Don't put more cash, more time, more effort into it. But you have to filter that out, because it can be one or the other, and hopefully it's just didn't work out because it wasn't meant to be. But
Justin, I feel I asked you a lot of questions, and this is something that I usually do. I haven't done so in a while, but I feel comfortable to do it with you. Is there any question that you would like to ask me?
Well, I wasn't prepared for that. I would say what would you say is the most common trait you see in people who are successful, who you have interviewed?
Very interesting question. I think the trait that I see most often is the audacity to prove yourself right. Because you see something, as we were speaking earlier on, but you haven't figured out a way of how to prove it, see it, or materialize it. But in some way or another, you try to prove yourself right, that this does exist. The pink unicorn, when it cries critters,
it exists.
does exist. And I think that pursuit, that will, some might say willpower, some might say perseverance, stubbornness. To me, it's the audacity to prove yourself right. I think that's the trait that I would say that I define someone who is very successful and someone who is trying to be successful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's definitely that plays a big part in success. And also, dare I mention it again, even, the grit, because you have to persevere. And again, going back to that unicorn, I mean, at the end of the day, does that unicorn have to really be an actual horse? Can it be robotic? I mean, who knows? It wasn't very specific, right? So it could be anything.
Again, thinking outside the box. And that's something that I don't think that's rewarded enough in organizations. Creativity, thinking outside the box, challenging the status quo. I don't think it's rewarded enough because that can be scary and intimidating.
I would agree actually with that, because when I look back, as you're mentioning that, I look back on my career and I find that actually creativity lends itself well to solving problems.
Yes.
But then that same creativity and that ability to solve problems does not lend itself so well to being an employee. And I think that's probably the challenge. And I think in the beginning I struggled a lot with that. I remember once I had people in it was a particular HR manager and someone in operations. I remember them pulling me into a room, and it was one of my favorite roles, and they said, I was a team leader at the time.
Okay.
You're not really a people person, You're not too much of a people person, I think maybe you should just stick to being a senior, and all that stuff. And I remember saying, my God, what are you guys on about, really? And I think that, and then the biggest problem back then, I think, is I did things by the book. I was very structured, very organized. The team was doing very well, but it can also be a bit too much.
Yeah.
When you have that particular blend of skills that are going to make you successful as an entrepreneur, they're not so great as an employee.
Yeah.
And then, long and behold, I ended up becoming a chief people officer and entrepreneur and all this sort of stuff. So I guess I proved myself right and them wrong, as you were saying.
The irony is that most companies, if you look at job descriptions, they try to see or they try to promote that they're looking for someone who's creative, a strategic thinker, an outside-the-box thinker, and that requires someone who has, again, use the same word, the audacity to say, listen, this is not right, this is good, this is where we're heading. And that, again, that makes a person competent, which makes a person confident, which makes a person intimidating sometimes if the leader or the person who is on the table on which this idea would land not strong enough to harness that creative spirit, to harness that idea. Because you can shoot down an idea from different points of view, but the worst thing the first point of view to shoot an idea down would be because of lack of insecurity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things I can pick up from that, and I would start with the fact that companies tend to advertise themselves as what is appealing at the time, not necessarily who they are. And I think there's a big issue. There is nothing wrong in you not having a family-orientated environment, for example. Okay, we see this a lot. So I think it's the most important thing is for a company to advertise what is true to them, and that is sometimes, and for the most part, it's completely unique. For some companies, you do have to sit in a cubicle,
Yep.
you know, and just do data inputting. For some companies, you are spinning a ball on a roulette table, and that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a number of different things there. But then I also find that because today there's a lot of these chat GPTs and AI writing the job descriptions out of laziness almost, companies are not really going into the depth before they put that job description up and live, and that's not really a true reflection of who they are either. So they're just creating these job descriptions, and people apply, they get the right CVs, but then they realize they go to the interview and it's not even the same kind of job or culture that they're looking for. But then obviously when you're there, those expectations would have been different, and you go in and you're just not necessarily, you've got the wrong fit.
Yeah.
But then let's say you got the right fit, and you have got this creative mindset, and you have got this individual in the team. That person is not going to survive it. They're going to disrupt, or they're going to leave. And so you would have gone through all this exercise for absolutely no reason. And then additionally to that, and this is something that I do today a lot, is I surround myself with people who have a lot more experience than me in other specialities. So for example, I'm not a finance person. I've never been that great with numbers other than what's in my account.
That's good.
Or how much I need to spend to buy something. But other than that, not so great. So having, you know, people who are around me who are fantastic at something is very important. And these typically are people who are much, much older than me, much more experienced than me. And I can do that because I have the confidence in myself. I know what I'm capable of. I know that I'm able to manage these people and do so in a way that still allows them to learn from me, and vice versa. I think that's the most important thing. So you have to be comfortable within your own skin, within your own role, within your own expertise, to be able to take that step. But if you do take that step and you have these people around you, it can expedite your growth in a phenomenal way.
Riding on that thought as well is that sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, Justin, sometimes you need to stick to the rules, to stick to starting from a humble job, a humble beginning, and then work your way up, because there are lessons along the way that sometimes following the rules and staying in conformity with the boundaries, let's say, there's a lesson in itself, because you will then, I'd see, at least from my personal experience, you would then be selective on which battles to fight, which battles not to fight. Because you pick your battles. Because some battles are worth fighting, some battles are not, unfortunately. Waste of time, energy, finance, just isn't worth it sometimes. You still can put up a fight if you would ever want to, but that would be deliberate. That wouldn't be something that because you do it from an emotional point of view, it's because you're doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
I think intent there is very, very, very crucial. Because sometimes when we're younger, we tend to get emotional, we tend to get very passionate, and that's wonderful. That's great, because it means that you believe in something.
Yeah.
But then as you grow older, you learn to harness that energy, you learn to harness those emotions and to direct them in the right channels.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to an extent there, and I'll tell you why. Because for me, the rules, I can't stand rules, and I'll tell you why. Not because I don't like the bureaucracy or organization. I love that, and I didn't like it so much when I was younger. I've grown to love it today.
Okay.
Because it enables me to do what I need to do much more with my time than I could have ever thought possible. Thank God for Google Calendar. I love that.
High five to that.
Yeah. So I think for me, I do understand the beauty of using tools and also having structure and following that type of organizational skill set in order to be able to maximize my ability to do the absolute most I can with my time, my people, 100%. But then the rules thing is a little bit different. I think when you are trying to make a success of something, sometimes the bureaucracy of things is actually what ends up killing your ability to become successful. So now I'm not saying do anything illegal. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that sometimes those rules are limiting. So you need to find what you can do up until you have to get to a point where those rules apply to you. For me, it's always been the most important thing is to really push the boundaries, because sometimes those rules were created by people who either didn't have this idea at the time, who didn't have this mindset at the time, at a time that was completely different to our time.
Yeah.
So in reality, there could be a lot of things that are impacting what could potentially be success if you only look at what you can do within the confines of what it is that you're doing. So I think really trying to understand those rules and how they can enable what you're trying to do is very important.
Yeah.
But not letting them limit what it is you want to do. Because let's face it, for example, if there's something you want to do here in Malta and you can't do it in Malta, but it's a success, it's legal, and it's something you really want to do, then you need to find where you can do it. What market is going to work best for you? What regulatory framework is going to work best for you? What tax framework is going to work best for you? All these sort of things play a key part. So I would say I agree with that little bit of a caveat.
Yes, and that's what I went as well.
Oh, there you go.
Because if I think rules, or the way I meant rules is that rules protect and create a safe environment. But I think the question on organizations personally and even politically, I think we need to ask ourselves, who are the rules serving, and if they are serving the right purpose. So we do need to challenge the status quo from time to time and to reassess, because as you said, Justin, sometimes the rules have been created a long time ago from people who may not have been well informed at the time. Things have changed, technology have changed.
Yeah.
And so in order for us to continue progressing and evolve and expanding, we need to ask and to challenge, to say, listen, does this still apply? Is this still valid and reliable from a research point of view?
Yes. Yeah. I think I agree 100% with that. I think the biggest challenge is getting away from safe, because we know safe.
Yes.
We know what that looks like. And I think that's great to have that comfort, but a lot of the biggest successes, innovations have come from discomfort. And I think it's important to allow ourselves to be open to that. Sometimes you can't coddle people. They have to be uncomfortable. They have to be pushed to work, to find their own solutions. And you can only really find a solution to a problem when you have a problem.
Yeah. That's a very good way of putting it. Interesting. Justin, we arrived at the end of our episode.
Wow, that happened really quick.
Really quick. We've been on it for more than an hour. And I think there are... this episode felt like a rapid fire question.
Oh, really?
You're so fast at answering questions in a very good way. Oh. You're used to it.
I am, yeah. I'm good at talking, it seems.
But we still have the final surprise.
Yes, the fishbowl.
Yes. So I will ask you to choose one, read it out loud, and answer it like a rapid fire question.
Okay, let's have a look here. I'm mixing it obviously for good.
Yes.
Best practice this. Those rules we were talking about before. Mela. Okay. How do you balance personal growth with professional responsibilities? Okay. I think my answer to this would be that I try and find something to take away or to learn from absolutely anything and everyone that I encounter or anything that I do. So for me, the most important thing is whatever I do professionally is somehow interlinked with what I want to do from an entrepreneurial perspective. And that has been the case through and through my career. So I have always wanted to lead a company. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And what I have invested in, what I am doing today, are companies that I've thought of for a while. So the roles I took and the roles I accepted within my professional career have ultimately all been decisions I've made leading me up to where I am today, knowing full well where I wanted to get to in 10, 15 years' time. So I would say that would be my answer, and I've managed to balance that out, because for me there wasn't really much to balance out, because it all interlinked to my plan, in a sense. I think if you have to balance it out, it's kind of like one or the other. They're almost polar opposites. If you look at the scale, one's on the left, one's on the right.
Yes.
For me, they're both in the center, they're both in the middle. So there wasn't really much balancing. Really, it just all kind of happened in one clean flow towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm. So what's the takeaway message that you're going to take away with you today from this conversation?
I would say the fact, for me, I think the fact that the content I'm doing or what I'm doing has had an impact. I think that was a really nice thing to hear, but also the fact that I've been able to have this discussion. I think this is also shows the impact that that's had, and I get to talk to great people like yourself and share in their experience. And for me, again, this is something that I learned from also. So I thank you for the opportunity to be able to do that and to obviously be able to share this with your viewers as well.
Justin, thank you. I'm humbled. Thank you for joining me in this
pleasure
conversation. It's been a really wild hour. They're wild in the sense that there are so many things that I've captured even for myself. I've seen parallels, things that I've resonate with from a personal level and professional level as well. And it's just a very well-packed episode. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and insights.
My pleasure. And thanks for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.